From Naples, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. Where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DeLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're talking about what happens when words get in the way of the two of you communicating.
And there's an anonymous quote that says, "The power of a few well-chosen words and a change in tone may completely transform a phrase." And just to add my own 2 cents, I think it also has the ability to completely transform a marriage. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. You know, when words do get in the way of the two of you communicating. But first, we start every episode with a hug. And a hug is really an opportunity to celebrate what you're doing in your marriage, the transformation that you're having. And this hug comes from a 5-star Apple Podcast review that says, "I found this podcast a little over 2 years ago while searching for Christian podcasts. My marriage of then 14 years to my high school sweetheart was not in the best place. We had survived some huge trials over the years, including long-distance relationship while he was in the military and I was in school. After the military, we got out of huge debt, then tried to start a family and endured 8 years of infertility, multiple miscarriages, and finally had our beautiful, longed-for daughter. What we always wanted was finally a reality, but we fell into roommates faster than I ever thought possible. We had an amazing sex life up to the point of having our daughter, but hormones, extreme pain with intercourse, lack of sleep, and opposite schedules all really diminished what was once a healthy sex life. Sadly, we only had sex 10 times the year our daughter was born, the definition of a sexless marriage. After finally getting some pelvic floor therapy, things were much better in that department, but we recently had some major blow-ups over the mundane things of life, and I needed some guidance. I started listening and couldn't get enough of your podcasts. So many of the things you talk about we had gone through and survived. How could the little things be getting to us now? My favorite thing I have picked up and often use is, what can I do? My attitude change or shift has made a huge difference in all forms of our intimacy. The sex is amazing. In fact, it's better than ever in the 25 years we've been together and 16 years married. I also feel like I can be open and honest and not fear any resentments, because if I stay positive, it diffuses the little day-to-day tiffs. Thanks for all you do. And I wanted to say that today I am officially caught up on all of the podcasts starting at number 1. And I can also say we did it.
Oh my goodness. Man, that is a jam-packed hug.
I know.
In 2 years, what has happened and what has transformed, and it's truly an honor and a blessing to have you both part of the one family, as well as all of you. Wherever you are, wherever you're taking action, wherever you're being intentional, keep going. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey has its own ups and downs, and yet we're not doing this alone.
Hey, real quick, we haven't actually had a "we did it" hug in a while. Will you share with everyone? Because somebody might just hear that at the end and be like, why does anybody care that they did it? So what is a "we did it"?
So many, many, many years ago, we coined this thing, a "we did it." So whenever you complete a sex challenge, whatever that is to you, 7, 14, 30, some of you gone 60, 100, 200 plus, whatever that is to you, send in your hug, let us know, and then end it or subject it, "we did it," because we do love to celebrate those of you who have taken on a challenge, a sex challenge, to go like, we wanted to do something radical in our marriage. We were going to do something different, because we have said many a times, and if you're new to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, welcome. A sex challenge isn't only about sexual intimacy. Today we're talking about emotional intimacy. And more times than not, the emotional intimacy needs to be in line so you can have the sexual intimacy you desire and to even complete a challenge.
Oh, yeah. You definitely need emotional intimacy to complete a sex challenge.
And then everything in between there, the physical, the financial, the recreational, the spiritual, those all come into play as well in a challenge.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that with everyone. And, you know, as Tony said at the very top of this episode, you know, we're talking about what happens when words get in the way of the two of you communicating. And those of you that have been around a while, you know that every now and then I start to see trends with my coaching clients, patterns that are showing up in multiple sessions. And over the last couple of weeks, this has been happening. I've been noticing that words have been getting in the way of couples communicating. And really how this has been showing up, the trend has been that a spouse will have some, like I can see it where I do my coaching sessions via Zoom. And so I can see the conversation happening between a husband and a wife, and I can see one or the other have, their body actually responds to certain words. And it's obvious as an observer that certain words are getting in the way of this couple having a conversation. And some of the ways that you can see this just in the dialogue is that the person might not be able to give a response to the question. So you'll get an I don't know answer, or they'll get defensive, or maybe not even want to participate in the conversation. They just shut down and the conversation ultimately shuts down. And what's been interesting as I've been watching this and seeing these trends is that it's not necessarily about the topic that's being discussed. Sometimes these words are getting in the way of the two of you being able to communicate because words carry a different meaning, or they become a trigger for your spouse. And here's the thing, you might not know it. You just know that, oh, okay, suddenly we're not talking about something, right? And it's getting into this place of recognizing that individual words do have power. They have past emotional associations. Some words imply to your spouse judgment or criticism. Some words imply or create a feeling of being pressured or controlled. They can activate shame or feelings of inadequacy. Or they're reminders of previous negative experiences. I mean, think about it, like you have all of these words that sometimes words are kind of like minefields.
And we did an episode some time ago, episode 633, The Words You Speak. And I'll put that episode here in the episode notes because I think it goes hand in hand. Because we have talked a lot about this over the years about our in relation to our emotional intimacy. The words we speak have power over us, over our spouse, over our marriage. And sometimes one of the first places we need to step into is, what can I do about it?
Just like that hug.
Just like the hug. What can I do? What am I speaking? And so make sure you check out that episode because I think it'll go really good with this one that we're talking here.
Right. Because, developing this self-awareness of the reactions that you have to words when those words are getting in the way, it's an opportunity to experience growth, specifically in your emotional intimacy,
Right.
because that's emotional intimacy. Like I said, in the 6 Pillars of Intimacy, the book, like emotional intimacy is the workhorse.
Correct.
Right. So these words may be impacting your emotional intimacy, but depending on what you're talking about, it may be impacting one of the other 5 as well. Right. So really stepping into this place of saying, okay, well, what does this look like? And this happened like very significantly in a recent coaching session. And, in between 2 coaching sessions, the couple had been having a conversation. They do a relationship check-in, and as they were going through their questions, the question was posed by the husband to the wife. And the first part of the question was, am I meeting your emotional needs? And then as he was relaying the story to me, he said, well, it kind of begged the question, do you know what your emotional needs are? Now, I've been working with this couple for a little while, and I know that the wife had grown up in a family where it was not okay. Like, hear me, not okay to be needy at all, but especially not emotionally needy. And so
when you say needy, what does that mean?
For her, like there wasn't, like if you were sad or if you felt hurt, like there was no safe place to actually be able to express those emotions.
Okay.
So having any type of emotional need, like I need to be comforted, I need to be loved, like that was not brought forth in that family.
Okay.
Right. So you learn very quickly, if that's kind of the upbringing that you've had, that you just got to take care of yourself. And like, you just don't deal with the emotion. Like there's just, right. You can shut down that part of yourself. And so.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
I know you want to get going here, but I do want to say something. If you heard what Elisa said, what may be happening in your marriage may not necessarily be your marriage. It may be from past relationships, trauma, situations that you may be aware of because your spouse has told you about them. And you know it from a knowledge base. And yet your spouse may actually feel it. Mm-hmm. They may actually resent that, time in their life, that trauma that happened. So do realize when we are in marriage, there is this there's an ebb and flow. We're still learning at times, and something that may not be bothering your wife or your husband for years of your marriage may begin to change due to a death of a family member. It may begin to change because of age, nostalgia, hormones. Things begin to change that may bring up these emotions now.
Right.
That you're like, different hurts, right? But I'm saying 10 years ago it was never a big deal. 2 years ago it wasn't a big deal. And now why all of a sudden it is?
Yeah.
Things change. So do realize it's not always about you. You may say something, you may feel it's about you, but it's really your spouse is showing, and then we got to get into the deeper issues of why that's happening.
Well, and that was the thing, because I'm watching the two of them describe this conversation to me, and I could see it in her body language almost immediately. Plus, I've been working with them, like I said, for a little bit, so I know enough about the journey that they've been on to make this educated guess. And so I said, hold up. I think this word needs is actually a problem. I get what you're trying, to the husband, I was like, I get what you're trying to ask her, but she's been conditioned to not be emotionally needy, to not have emotional needs. So I looked at the wife and I said, let me change this question. I looked at her and I said, what makes you feel emotionally connected to your husband? And suddenly she rattled off a list. I think it was probably like 5 or 6 things. Now, mind you, when he had asked her what her emotional needs were, she's like, I don't know. Like, I don't really have any needs. But when the question was, what makes you feel emotionally connected? I mean, she started saying things like being a sounding board for you, meaning her husband, experience praise and worship together, being physically present, even if we aren't doing something together, just knowing you are there. She actually said in the session, your emotional presence is comforting.
Wow.
And I was like, mic drop. Like going from, hey, what are your emotional needs, to being able to describe that his presence is comforting because we changed a word. It really highlighted the fact that, sometimes these words trip us up and we don't even know, like I said a few minutes ago, we don't even know they're landmines. But I've had other clients where it's not the word needs, but it's the word budget. And they just, because of all of these associations, maybe in their, growing up or other relationships, it felt restrictive or controlling. And so they're like, heck no. Or, it reminds them of childhood scarcity or stress. And so they're like, I don't even want to, I don't want to deal with the budget. I don't want to talk money. I don't want to do this kind of stuff. For others, it might be the word challenge. I remember very distinctly a few years ago talking to a longtime member of the One family, and we were talking about the 7-day sex challenge. Right. And this is a couple that had tried challenges multiple times, and they always just kind of got to a point where they're like, whatever, forget it. I'm not doing this. And so we were having a conversation, and yet they still wanted to try it. Right. And so we're having a coaching session, and they have this epiphany in the middle of the session. It's kind of like, we don't like the word challenge.
Because of the negative connotation it actually brings.
Bingo.
Yep.
Right? Because for them, it was like, oh, well, there's something wrong. Like we need to be challenged to fix it. Or, we've had other problems in this area. And so, we're going to do a challenge. And so they had all these negative connotations. They changed the word. I wish it's been many, many years, so I can't remember exactly what they changed the word to. But the fact was they changed the word. They had their own word for what Tony and I would call.
I think it was adventure. I think it was a 7 days of sex adventure.
I'll go with it.
I think it was, because the word challenge brought on more of from a marital standpoint, if I can remember, talking to other couples at events and things, is it becomes like, well, we've had challenges in our marriage, tough challenges. Like many of you know, like Elise and I we brought ourselves out of debt, like $50,000 in debt. We lost a child. Those are challenges. Those are for us, we don't see that, but for other couples and for maybe you, it's a challenge. And it's a low point in your marriage. And so to associate a 7-day sex challenge with something good doesn't compute for you, but a 7-day sex adventure, because you love adventuring, because you love going outside or doing different things together and you adventure together, can bring you together in that aspect.
Absolutely. And so it's really interesting because a lot of people find that there's this friction point in their marriage around certain topics or whatever. And they're like, oh, it must just be the topic. Like, we can't talk about money. But instead it's looking at it and going, okay, but what's actually going on underneath the surface? What do those words mean to each one of you? And how do the two of you navigate this place so that the words aren't going to get in the way of your marriage, but you're actually going to be able to build that emotional intimacy and communicate together? And we're going to talk about that after this break. Do you feel overwhelmed when it comes to makeup? Well, Charlotte Tilbury has bottled 30 years of artistry into easy to choose, easy to use beauty products. You can't go wrong. They're flattering for everyone, everywhere. That's the reason why she is the queen of glow. Her rigorous standards ensure that every product is designed and formulated for performance like nothing else on the market. Take her iconic Hollywood Flawless Filter. With one product, you can blur, smooth, and illuminate the look of skin. Plus, it's skincare infused for clinically proven hydration for up to 24 hours. From red carpets to influencers' bathrooms, her legendary icons have gone viral for making everyone look and feel like the most beautiful, confident version of themselves. Charlotte Tilbury is performance you can trust. It's legendary for a reason. You can use CT Podcast 15 for 15% off on charlottetilbury.com. Plus, new account holders get free delivery. This ad is brought to you by Charlotte Tilbury, USA customers only, and valid until March 2nd, 2025. For full TNCs and exclusions, see the Charlotte Tilbury website. With us brand new to Southwest Florida, trying to figure out what our next home is going to be is so much easier with Redfin. Whether you're looking to buy or rent your next place, you need the Redfin app. Redfin makes it fun to search all the homes and apartments in your neighborhood. We've been able to look at so many different homes in the area, really getting a feel for what's here and what we like. It's been fun to search and ask the questions, where do we want to live? What are homes like here? What amenities do we really want? And if you find a place you love, Redfin makes it easy to go see it in person. Just schedule the tour right from the app. Plus, if you're looking to sell, Redfin agents know how to get you the best price possible for your home. That's because they close twice as many deals as other agents. And with a listing fee as low as 1%, Redfin's fees are half of what others often charge, which means you'll have more money to put towards your next home. So whether you're looking to buy, rent, or sell, Redfin's got you covered. Download the Redfin app to get started. We're back, and we're talking about identifying those words that get in the way of the two of you being able to build strong emotional intimacy. And it's been really interesting because over the years, I've helped couples, literally I sit down and I'm like, okay, we don't like that word. What are we going to use? It's like, I remember another gal years and years ago, you and I will use talk about feeling sexy or being sexy. Like, that's a phrase that you and I are very comfortable with.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so I had asked a wife that I was coaching with, I said, well, what makes you feel sexy? And I could see it, like, her whole countenance was just like, oh, heck to the no. And she had a really bad association with that word. And I said, scrap it. We are not talking about you being sexy. Just strike it from the coaching session. I said, how do you want to present yourself in your marriage? What do you want? Like, who's that woman? And she's like, I want to be attractive. And I go, bingo. What makes you feel attractive? And so we actually changed the vocabulary that she and I were using, but ultimately it changes the vocabulary within the marriage. Just like for this couple, instead of being emotional, like talking about emotional needs, they're going to talk about emotional connectedness. And what's so powerful is that you, as a husband and wife, you actually get to create your own marriage dictionary. You do not have to use the words that the rest of the world uses. You don't have to be like anybody else. You can start evaluating and assessing how you react, what words, like, how do you respond when you or your spouse uses a word, and go, okay, wait a minute. When do I feel uncomfortable? What are those triggering words that make you say, I feel uncomfortable here? Because you have to know first. We've covered many, many times over the last 15 years of the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. Your spouse does not have ESP.
Nope.
They do not know why or what word is causing that reaction when they've just said a whole sentence of words. They just know that you might be having a reaction, or you might be really good at hiding your feelings and you just shut down the conversation and they have no idea what happened. I implore you, get a little more self-reflective when something makes you want to shut down or get defensive or not answer a question. Like, what happened there? so that you can actually communicate it with your spouse.
And here's something, again, we're going to go back to the hug, but the what can I do in this is sometimes you need to become self-reflective and you need to spend some time with yourself to understand what's going on so then you can present it and bring it forth to your spouse. And yes, sometimes that's going to happen after a possible argument or a possible blow up because that's when it is top of mind.
Sure.
Right? When things are going well, we're just rolling along, right, folks? Like Elisa and I are rolling along. Life is good. And then all of a sudden, we hit something. And that's when we have to become self-reflective. We got to take some time. We got to calm down, go out, think things through, pray, get some guidance, get some wisdom, right? And go, okay, what happened there? Like, why did I react like that? Why did I, attack like that? Like, and I will say that in our own marriage of 28 years, believe me, this is not the easiest thing to walk through at times. It takes some practice. It takes some willingness to lay down, for me, ego, right? Like lay down and be like, this isn't always about Tony. This is about the marriage. This is about the two becoming one. Like in my mind, I will say this. Sometimes it would be like, well, don't say that word to me. And I'm like, oh, don't tell me not to say that word to you. I'm going to just say that word to you and you're going to have to deal with it. I remember years ago being that way. But I realized like that's pretty stupid of me and very myopic of me. This is a give and take. This is a willingness to go, you know what? It's not always about me, but what can I do in this? Does it impact Elisa? And if it impacts Elisa, and if I'm willing to strengthen all our 6 pillars of intimacy, then I need to be willing to make some changes too.
Sure.
And so I just want to share that when you're creating this marriage dictionary, that you are willing to go like, hey, that's a word that really just tweaks my spouse, and I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to bring it up in a heated argument to get them even more upset, right? Because that breaks trust, and that deteriorates the 6 pillars of intimacy.
Well, because it's not just knowing what those words are. I think it's, because that's, that's the what, but the why is really important. Why do you have a resistance to those words? Because when you share at that level of vulnerability, like I shared with this couple and just knowing that it was not safe for her to have emotional needs as a child, then, that's a vulnerability that she brings to the marriage.
Right.
Right. And when, as a husband, you understand, or as a wife, but in this case, as the husband understands, okay, that there's a reason that phrase doesn't work for her. Okay, if I change my language, what can I create in the marriage, right? Because it's not just the, what are the words or why do they matter? But it's like, what else can we do? What can I do? Like looking and brainstorming alternative words, right? If it's not budget, then what can we use? Can we use a spending plan? If it's not a challenge, can we use opportunity? If it's not going to be, needs, we're going to be talking about but you have to have those conversations. Don't just start trying to change the language and not discuss it with your spouse. Because they're like, why are we talking about being emotionally connected? Like, what is that about? Because your spouse might be thinking, hey, what do you need from me?
And that's okay.
And you're like, we're not connecting. And then you start to feel like, what's going on with us? Why can't we have a conversation? What's our problem? Are we even supposed to be together? But then you also have to flex the muscle. You have to practice using the new vocabulary. And it's not going to be, super comfortable at first because you're going to catch yourself and be like, we're not using needs. We're talking about a connection. Okay, let me re-ask that question, right? And it's going to be a little rinse and repeat until it actually gets muscle memory for the two of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about this even from that word sexy to attractive. And I do want to share this around our sexual intimacy, especially for those of you who've men and women who have battled porn. It has been revealed. It has caused hurts in the marriage. To me, sexy can lead that person to think of, well, what was he or she looking at? And I'm going to lean more towards us guys and us men who have looked at porn, and we're using that word to our spouse and our wife, and her sexy is whatever those images may be in porn. But
she's thinking her association is what you saw was sexy in the porn.
Right.
Okay.
And so that association drives her away. Where attractive is, no, I'm attractive. I'm there. To me, it's a, what's the word I'm looking for? A classic. I don't know if it's a classic, but it's actually
a more intimate, when I think about you being attracted to me, like there's like a pull.
Here's what I want to just share with me. Okay. Sexy to me is lingerie, right?
Okay.
Attractive to me is there's a class to it. Like there's a
it's kind of like next level.
Yeah, there's just this power to the attractiveness. You could still be wearing some form of clothing, but sexy, like it, just even in my mind, I'm just talking like, and this may not be you, but when I think like sexy in that regard, I'm like, okay, lingerie, still good looking stuff, but attractive. There's this class. There's just this image I see of you wearing classic clothing that still makes you very beautiful. Like it makes it's even more like there's less being shown, but it's more like, oh my gosh, like I need to take those clothes off of her.
Don't digress. Don't digress.
But I'm just saying how those words can matter. And
that may be, if you have struggled with porn in your marriage, this may be one of those conversations that you have like, hey, what words cause a resistance to you?
And the crack in that sexual intimacy pillar.
Absolutely. And so you might even just go through this and saying, having the conversation with your spouse to say, hey, when do you feel uncomfortable? Like what words am I using that make you feel uncomfortable in regard to our sexual intimacy, right? That you associate maybe with past porn use or, something along those lines. Then we'll talk about why they create resistance. Maybe it is the fact that, well, I associate that particular word, whether it's sexy or something else, with maybe the images that you were seeing, and I don't feel like I can measure up to that. So when you say that, I just feel defeated and that type of thing. Then brainstorm those alternatives together. Well, what's a different word? Just like I asked that wife. Okay, scrap sexy. How do you want to show up? And she was able to say attractive. It's that word that feels better to her. And then you start practicing that new vocabulary. And you check in from time to time, right? Hey, we've been using this new word for the last month, for the last 2 months. How is that sitting with you? Because, like Tony said, sometimes when we use these words, the old words, right, the ones that create the disconnection, there's been such a pattern of that we have to actually check in on the new words. Is this word working? If it's not, like have another conversation. Here's the deal. The two of you are only married to each other. I tell this to my coaching clients all the time. Any tool, any idea, anything you can change for the betterment of the marriage. So that's why you do the check-ins. That's why you have the conversations. That's why you get coaching if you need it, because all of the adjustments are happening in order to keep the unit, the marriage, healthy and whole.
Yeah. When we're talking about words, there's so much here, but take this today. Look at it and go, okay, are there some words that are creating cracks, disconnection between us? And if you're in a space where you're like, man, we have tried this, we've tried to come up with the new marriage dictionary, it's just not working, I would highly suggest that you apply for marriage coaching, and you can do that at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/coaching. Get the help. It may not be as much as you need, but when I say need in terms of time, you could probably get this done in a few sessions. And what would that do for you this year? So take the step. Use this, look at this, talk with your spouse this week and see, are there some words that are landmines in your marriage that need to be assessed and new words inserted? You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. We can't wait to see you at an upcoming event. Have yourselves a great week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.